Hey, you guys, welcome back to the So Lux Life Podcast. I'm Kristen J. Watson, your host. I'm super excited about tonight's episode. We have a special guest. He is a star of Million Dollar Beach House. It's a Netflix series. So excited to have him, Noel Roberts. Thanks for coming on. How are you, Noel?
I'm wonderful. Good to see you. Thanks so much for having me, and I look forward to our discussion.
Most definitely. I'm super excited about it. If you guys don't know, again, like I said, he is on a Netflix series. He does real estate. Y'all know I'm into real estate. So definitely tune in. We're going to give you guys some time to jump on. So stay tuned.
Welcome to the So Lux Life Podcast, where our goal is to enhance the mental, physical, and spiritual luxuries in life. Make your life luxurious through knowledge, coaching, training, and technique. Visit us online at SoLuxLife.com. Here's your host, Crispin J. Watson.
And we're back. So again, thanks you guys for tuning in. Definitely share the podcast, share the live stream. Leave us your comments. We will answer any questions that you may have if they are appropriate. If y'all aren't prying too deep, we'll answer any questions that you have. He's such a pure soul, so nice. We were chatting before the podcast started. So down to earth. So just start us off, Noel. Just tell us a little bit about you, where you grew up and how you got into real estate.
Well, sure. So I grew up. It's a very long story, but I'll give you the shortened version. I grew up in Minnesota, born in DC. Family moved to Minnesota when I was very young, so I grew up in Minnesota. Went through high school in Minnesota. Didn't go to university, which was a battle at first when you have, a professor father, PhD chemist father who wanted to see his kids go off and become, you know, mathematicians, physicists,
Right.
do anything, but go to college. I have a twin brother, identical twin brothers, and we were very more social, very into business and real estate. We were introduced to when we were about 17. We went to this seminar where they were talking about real estate and its potential and ability to change your life. We were kind of captured by the presentation and the opportunity. So we actually got into real estate right out of high school. We began to raise money from investors, people with retirement funds and self-directed IRAs, retirement accounts, to renovate homes around the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. So that's what I said we were going to do. And that's what we did. We said, hey, we're looking to do these things. And we just sort of did it. It was definitely kind of put out to the universe what you do. And of course you study. So we were very self-taught. I learned a lot from books and YouTube and mentors, finding other guys who were successful and landlords and rehabbers. And I was fake it till you make it. Grew a mustache, grew a beard, and didn't let anybody know I was only, 18, 19, 20 years of age. But we had a little bit of success doing that. And that was sort of the launching pad into the real estate world.
That's so exciting. So I never knew. So you all just kind of jumped right out there, like right out of high school. What kind of sparked the idea? What sparked your interest for real estate?
So real estate was definitely not even something that I had even considered or looked into. I just knew that, everyone's sort of different. I was one of those kids where I just wanted to be an adult. All my childhood, I wanted to be an adult. I wanted to get out there and work and earn money. And I think most importantly, it's like wanted to be respected, because adults were respected because, they're independent and they could fend for themselves. And I think as a kid, I just wanted to dive right in. And the idea of 4 years in university, which I do not knock. If I could go back and take some finance classes, I would do it in a heartbeat. Because I've there are a couple things I've realized there were some kinks in the armor, but certainly taught and learned as much as I could. Even though I didn't go to university, I kind of had to give myself an
Mm.
education of sorts. Um, I went when we were 17. We went up to Maine. I have a sister who lives in Maine, and my brother-in-law. I give all the credit to him. His name is Caleb. Thought we were somewhat directionalist. I was Googling six-figure jobs that you could do, but without having to go to college. And so I was
Mhm.
very much in my mind knew that although we were smart, very smart and intelligent, I just didn't think that college was what I wanted to do right away. I wanted to take a couple years, or if I could make it happen without going to university altogether, I wanted to do that as well. But definitely take a couple years to see what I could pursue that was more entrepreneurial. And he handed us a Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad Poor Dad book, which many people in real estate are somewhat familiar with.
I gotta have it right over here.
Yeah, and it was interesting. It didn't hook me in right away. It was
Mhm.
until we went to the seminar where there was a lecture on the stage in a jam-packed hotel conference room. We were 17. We were by far the youngest in the room by 3 or 4 decades.
Right.
Uh, a lot of gray hair. And there was a lady on the stage, one of the presenters. There were several, but she kind of spoke to us, I guess, in a way, or triggered something, because she said, "Look, out of everybody in this room, maybe 5 of you will do a real estate deal, but only one or maybe two, but probably just one of you will be truly successful." And my brother and I
Okay.
were very competitive. And we sort of looked at each other and looked around the room and thought, yeah, if anybody's in this room is going to be successful, it's going to
Right,
be
it's gonna be us. So.
Yeah, so that's what it was that kind of triggered that competitiveness in us to make it happen and be successful. So right out of there, before we even graduated high school officially, we had incorporated an entity that was a real estate company, and it was initially the investment side of things. Um,
Mhm.
I wish I got my license right away, actually, but it wasn't until many years later that I actually went out and got my real estate license. But it was more about we were really good at marketing and advertising. We were really good at
Mhm.
finding deals. We learned what constitutes a good investment deal or property, um, figuring out how to analyze the repairs that would need to go into the property, uh,
Mhm.
and then what the resale value would be on the back end. And then once you have a deal, taking it to a list of investors that we had been working and slowly building to say, hey, we found a deal. Here's what it needs, and here's what we're confident it will sell for on the back end. And
Mhm.
so investment deal making was sort of at the core of what I enjoyed doing the most, and that was the entryway into the business.
Wow. So you said you wish you would have gotten your license earlier. So what really sparked you to go and get your license?
Yeah, so I'm 29 now.
Mhm.
I didn't get my license, and I did a lot of real estate stuff in between 17, 18, and now. It
Mhm.
was quite a 10-year journey, but I didn't get my license until I moved to the Hamptons in 2016. So I moved to Manhattan in 2014, moved to the Hamptons in 2016, and it wasn't until then. So there was a big gap in there where I probably left a tremendous amount of money on the table and didn't go out and get my license. And I'll admit, for the first time here, that I never being an agent wasn't my first like ever my a dream of mine, actually being an agent. It was always wanted to be the man. I always wanted to be the principal in the transaction. I always wanted to be the one buying or selling. Uh,
Mhm.
but it was actually, I'll admit, it was to my detriment, because there were so many deals that I could have done had I had my license, and much earlier, that would have been beneficial. When I first moved to Manhattan, I again had sort of was helping developers and builders raise money.
Mhm.
I'm skipping over some things now, but I moved to Manhattan in 2014. I had met some Hamptons-based builders while I was in the city. And if anyone doesn't not familiar with the Hamptons, it's in the eastern end of Long Island. It's a 2.5 hours outside of the city. It's a second home vacation market. So, in a luxury market in that. And so networking in the city, met some Hamptons builders. They said, "Hey kid, we like you. You're full of piss and vinegar. Come raise us some money." Yeah, I did. And I spent a really great amount of time helping these guys and others as well. I was consulting with some developers down in Texas, but really focused on the Hamptons,
Mhm.
finance some of their projects. And so I helped raise many millions of dollars for a number of deals for these guys, and moved out to the Hamptons just to be closer to the homes that were going up, because I'd done all of it virtually. I'd
Right.
never set foot in Long Island, or the Hamptons in particular. And so I moved out here in 2016 to be closer to the homes and try to expand my network of builders and developers that I was working with.
Mhm.
And it was later that year in 2016 where it was like, wait a minute, I should be representing these buyers from a brokerage standpoint, because these commission checks are huge.
Right. Like, wait, this could be me.
This could be me, just, and I was doing a lot of the work in terms of finding the deals and then finding the money, as
Mhm.
well, looking at a lot of land for these guys out in the Hamptons. And so it just made perfect sense to get my license. So that was 4 years ago, but it could have been 10 years ago.
Most definitely. But I think everything happens like at the right time, at the right moment. Because who's to
Agreed.
say, like, if you would have got your license before, you might not even gone out there. And then,
You're right. Things wouldn't have happened the way they happened. Although I tell myself I probably would have made a lot more money, but it happened.
well, we can't look back. The
Yeah.
past is in the past.
Yes, exactly.
Most definitely. So, like, I know you say your dad was like a professor and everything. So, how was his reaction when you guys were like, Dad, we're not going to college. We're gonna start a real estate business, and that's just gonna be that.
Not good. The reaction was not good. It was a source of some arguments and fights and things like that. And that's actually what led to us kind of cooling off from our house where we grew up in Minnesota and going to live with my sister up in Maine for a period of time, because things were kind of hot at home in terms of
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of heated. Let's just get away, get out his face, and not let him see us sitting around on his.
100%. That's exactly what happened. And then we got into real estate, and it was, a lot of timetables are thrown at us. Okay, we're going to give you guys X amount of time, a year, to do this whole real estate thing. But after that, you have to. Tables were given to us. And fortunately, things, when the money started to come in and they started to see that we were actually invested a lot of time in knowing our stuff and building a brand and building a business, then it was relaxed.
Yeah, because that's kind of one of the things with our families. They just want us to be secure and safe. And I don't like to pull the race card, but a lot of Black families, they don't really see entrepreneurship like right off. Like, you really have to prove it to them and like, hey, I'm really making some money. Like, this is legit. So, and then like people get on board. So anybody that's listening, don't let people tell you have to go to college. Like, I went to college, I got a degree, but I've never used it. That's my like every job I've had, not one was pertaining to my degree in political science.
Right.
And I'm a realtor, so definitely don't be afraid to step out there. What advice would you give someone that's kind of afraid to take that leap of faith and just not go the safe route?
It's a good question, because I have very, very my close friends, dearest friends to me, that our lives are completely different. Close friends who are much more secure, and it was college, it was a career. They tell me all the time, I could not live like you. It's a lot of fear and uncertainty.
Yeah.
Um, I just have a history, and my brother as well. If you kind of look at our stories, they're parallel. He went, we had made some money in our real estate business that we first started when we got out of high school, and he had the opportunity to go to Korea. If you've seen the show, you know that we're sort of these ping pong players. That was a big part of our past. Growing up, we used to play ping pong professionally, and he had the chance to go to Korea. And next thing you know, he found himself in the entertainment business, modeling and acting, and he sort of carved out a path for minority actors on the entertainment field in South Korea. There weren't a lot of black actors in TV and film, and he sort of became the go-to person and is well known, and he's famous in South Korea now. But it was years of struggling and sort of swinging at the plate. And so we both, him in entertainment, me in business, and then us sort of colliding worlds again, coming back into real estate and business. We just kept sort of swinging because we gave ourselves like that was the only option, like to be successful despite
Mhm.
what friends, families, and many times are the naysayers in our life, because you're doing something different and you're sort of sticking your neck out of the turtle shell, and when you do that, you're at risk of having it cut off. And so my advice is definitely know yourself. You have to have a lot of certainty.
Mhm.
If you say you're going to do something, the first person that comes along and says something contrary to what you had put out in the world, and you fall, or you kind of waver right away, then how much certainty did you really have in yourself? So you kind of have to know, how certain are you that this is what you want to do, whether it's real estate or entrepreneurism in general, and be willing to take the licks that come. And like when I first got into real estate or business, and I was learning a lot about self help and self development and business
Mhm.
things, that you learn quickly that businesses fail. Most businesses fail after just one, two. It takes the third year before a lot of businesses kind of succeed. Um, do you have a nest egg? Do you have the money saved up? Have you, or are you doing it sort of in your part time?
Mhm.
For me, I was fortunate to have a little bit of not much of a buffer in terms of, I had parents that said, all right, we'll give you a year. I was still living at home. I was 18 or whatever. So not everybody necessarily even has that buffer. You might already have
Mhm.
a family, you might have kids. So there's definitely not one answer that I can give that sort of takes care of everybody. That I like to play devil's advocate. Some people might say, look, your situation's a lot different than mine. I've got kids. I can't dive
Mhm.
right away, burn the boats, as the expression says, and go all in, which is what I believe in. Like plan A,
Right.
no plan B. You burn the boats, you burn the bridge back. We're going forward. Um, you just have to make up in your mind, but this is what I'm going to be successful no matter what, and be willing to do whatever it takes.
I like that. So that just really kind of lets me know it's a mindset. So like whatever you put your mind to do, you can do that no matter what anyone tells you. Because the naysayers are going to come. Like it's inevitable. That's already written. It's going to happen, and you kind of have to prepare yourself for that. Prepare your mind for everybody's not going to cheer me on. Everybody's not going to think this is going to work. You're going to have people that hope you fall and hope that you're back to where they can be like, oh well, I told you that wasn't going to work out. But you
Yep.
definitely have to keep a clear mind, keep a positive mind, stay focused on your goals, and kind of find an accountability partner is what I kind of do,
Mhm.
whether it be my journal or like an actual person that I'm telling somebody like, hey, I got this project I want to do, I need to knock it out. And some of my friends will check in like, hey, so what did you do towards such and such today? And definitely have those people in your life. So did you ever have a mentor getting into real estate?
Getting into real estate,
Well,
no.
along the way,
I,
I would say.
along the way, I've developed mentors, and
Mhm.
mentors are key. I've received a lot of messages and questions about how to get started and what to do, and that's always one of the first one or two things I tell people to do: go out and find a mentor. And then there's
Mhm.
the challenge of how do you find that person. But trust me, you're looking very hard and send enough emails and messages and phone calls. But not just do that, but get out there physically and start. Mentors will kind of latch on and begin to admire what you do. But when I first started, it was I looked up to a lot of people, a few people in key, but they weren't always in real estate. They weren't always in the field. But I found people that I sort of admired, that were sort of at the top of their game, and
Mhm.
sort of applied what they did as opposed to what they said, because you look to see what people do, and
Right.
the actions that they're taking. And for the most part, it's the people who are just getting up every single day and showing up. and I started to admire that in a few key people. Um, it's funny. There's this guy named Hezekiah Griggs, and he was from New Jersey, and I was 17, and he was a couple of years older than me. I remember stumbling upon him on YouTube. He was one person in particular. I was just thinking about him earlier today, and you asked me this question. Very entrepreneurial young man. A lot of different businesses that he started in publishing and media. So I looked up to him just to see a guy that was like doing it, even though he was in a different field. I really looked up to him, and he's since passed. He passed away a couple of years ago in a tragic car accident. But he was somebody that I looked up to a lot back in those days. It was the early days of Twitter and LinkedIn, and Facebook was becoming much more popular. So what I did was I closed down my Facebook account, my normal one that I'd grown up with and had friends from high school, and
Right.
I started a brand new Facebook account, and I added only business people, real estate people, authors, lecturers, and so I began to sort of condition my mind to seeing a certain thing every
Mm,
day. Imagine logging into your social media and you're only seeing really great content in terms of like
right.
positive quotes
So
and
motivation.
complete motivation. That was the first thing I did when I was maybe 17 or 18. I think it was 18 when I did that. And I was seeing private jets and authors, and it was just a different lifestyle of exposing myself to from, I guess, social circle wise, peer group wise. I was seeing a lot of different things, and that really impacted what I was kind of doing every single day and seeing every single day and was around every day virtually.
Mhm.
Um, uh, Along the way, in meeting other investors and landlords, successful landlords, people who own a lot of property, whether it's for coffee or what have you,
Mhm.
they would oftentimes see somebody, and me in many cases. I've been fortunate to have people kind of encounter me and be admire me in a way. I don't know how that sounds, but I can only kind of describe it as maybe they admire me, but they kind of latch on to me, and which
Yeah,
is
they
great.
saw something in you that made them wanna.
Exactly. They see something in you, whether it's the ambition or a spark or something
Mhm.
different, and they want to offer you advice and help. And um, I've been fortunate to have a few of those people along the way. Um, so many of them still in my life, which and have been amazing mentors. I wouldn't even be where I am today without a few of the people I've met since I moved to New York, um, and Hamptons developers and builders and things of that nature, who have kind of took me under their wing and sort of sped up a lot of my development and education process.
I love that. So, like you said, it's very important to have like a network of people and just be who you authentically are and just work hard. And people can see that spark and drive in you, and that'll make them attracted to like your hustle, to what you're trying to do, to you trying to get to the next level in life. So let's kind of talk about the show. That's so exciting. See, I already got the scoop of how he got on there, but I'm gonna let him retell y'all. So tell us, how did you end up on this Netflix series, $1 Million Beach House?
So I moved to the Hamptons, like I said, in 2016. I got my license at the end of that year. I used it here and there. I was still doing a lot of consulting for a lot of developers, but I had a couple very big high-end listings. I was doing a lot of things like off market.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing I've learned and have become taught myself at was I was very good at marketing things. So although I wasn't at a big brokerage firm, people kind of I started a magazine. So started this thing called Hampton Spectator, and so I was involved in some media things and anything for exposure to help attract uh,
Mm-hmm.
business, whether it was investors or deals. That's got my arm in that. At any rate, I got the show from doing a lot of open houses. If you're an agent, you do open houses, and you kind of hope to have one or two people trickle in during a day. I would do these all day long open houses, balloons, signs out, 8 hours long, have snacks and goodie bags and things on the table at at a particular property because it was close to the ocean. I had a lot of traffic that would come through this particular open house.
Mhm.
And several months later, I got an email out of the blue and said, "Hey, Noel, you may not remember me. I'm a producer. I put together these real estate TV shows. We're putting one together about the Hamptons and the real estate market. We think you'd be a great fit for it. Do you want to get together and discuss?" And I said, "Sure." Got together with this particular producer, discussed the show, and I mean, the rest is history. I don't, initially I had to think about it for a while. I'm a very private person. I'm very low key. I'm off the radar, behind the scenes, and I kind of like being that. Uh, but Netflix, once in a lifetime opportunity. The amount of
Right, like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go with it.
exactly. So it was thinking about it for a while and talking to friends and family. Where it was like, okay, let's give this a shot and see where it goes.
Yeah, and it's so funny. I was just watching it one day, just on my Netflix, and I'm in the real estate. So I was like, oh, let me see what this is about. And it was so funny. It's how I actually met you, like one particular episode. Y'all just have to go check it out. It's super funny. Such a good show. So how has life changed for you? I know you said you were a private person before the show. So now that the show has aired, people have been tuned in. How has life changed for you?
Life has changed a lot. The show came out in the midst of a pandemic, and so um, you know there's not a lot of social events, big social events as we would typically do out in the Hamptons. So it was the show came out, and for a few days I wasn't going outside, but a few days later I did finally make it to Main Street and walk down the street, and I was stopped. I'm probably, I'm recognizable. I'm a black cast member, and I'm a tall, lanky black guy, and I wear a nice funny hat all the time. So I'm very easily recognizable, and I had a lot of people stop me and photos and follow me to a parking lot. I kind of knew someone was following me, and then finally this lady worked up the courage to say, "Hey, can I get a photo with you?"
Mm-hmm.
It's been great, especially when people see me on the street and are kind of surprised that I'm a real person and I live, in the
You
community.
actually go out and
Yes. And then it's great when they tell me, "Hey, I made this day trip to the Hamptons because I saw the show and you inspired me to come out to the Hamptons in general just to kind of check it out. I've never been out here. Can you come back to my car and meet my wife and things like that?" So because of that, it's been fantastic. It's been great on the business side of things because there are a lot of people I was dealing with that I didn't tell I was on a show. Owners, clients, buyers, sellers. I didn't mention even renters. It's a very big rental market in the Hamptons. That were sitting with their family, and next thing you know, they turn on the show and they see their real estate agent, and they
wait a minute.
call me and say, "You didn't tell me you're a TV star," and I was like, "Oh, it's just this little thing I did. Don't worry."
No, just a little day job.
Yeah. So it's been great, and I'm looking forward to doing many, many more seasons, and seeing where the show kind of grows.
Almost definitely. So if this really takes off, which I feel like it already has, but if it takes off even further, could you see yourself just doing TV and leaving real estate and investing alone, or that's always be your passion always?
It's like my first love.
Yeah.
Real estate and deal making is definitely my first love. So, and you do the TV stuff so it can bring more attention to your real life and your real business ventures and real estate things of that nature. But I'm so deeply passionate about real estate that I could never completely put it on the back burner. I like doing deals too much.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I love real estate. I actually just got licensed back in June.
Okay, congrats.
Thanks. So it's been cool. I actually love it. Got a little deal on the table now. I'm working, which is exciting. But I know my mentor gets tired of me. Come I don't think this is gonna work out because real estate is such a slow process. So and this is just advice for myself. What do you tell someone that's kind of getting into it and just having to have that patience to actually wait until the deals come through?
So they always say, especially if you're getting real estate in the Hamptons, for example, they say, hey, make sure you got 6 months worth of savings and things like that, which is not anything any newbie wants to hear. They don't want to hear about 6 months worth of savings and it takes time to do a deal. Um, but it really can take, it depending on which market that you're in, you might be in a very hot seller's market where things are going in contract within a couple of weeks from their listing, or you could be in a market like mine where it's not uncommon for a house to sit on the market for 6-9 months,
Oh,
sometimes even a year and a half before it sells. And so um, you'll definitely succeed much quicker if you're 100%, working 8 hours a day at that thing. Real estate is one of those businesses where people do get in part time, which is great for that. You can work, you do your day job, make your money, keep primarily, you want to keep food on the table. That's number one. Is
yeah, like don't be crazy now. Make sure
I want to say that. Um, but until you get to that point, you want to work very smart. You want to work hard and you want to work smart, whether it's after hours or before hours. Wake up super early and just kind of keep hustling. It's 100% a relationships thing. You can like looking at beautiful homes and beautiful kitchens all day long, but if you don't know any homeowners, you're not speaking to any homeowners, you're not going to get any listings. If you're not speaking to any buyers, you're not going to get any buyer clients. And so you have to think about what either puts me in the best situation or environment to meet these buyers and sellers, or you have to pick up the phone and start smiling and dialing, as you say, and build your book of clients and your book of business. So, yeah, a lot of different things and tricks and tactics that you can use, but nothing is going to take away from the fact that you got to pick up the phone and you got to talk to somebody. You got to talk to either a buyer or a seller. You can't get over that. So if you're getting into it and you don't like talking and building relationships, you just like the real estate, but you don't like the people aspect, you may not go that far. You got to really love both the people aspect and being a problem solver. At the end of the day, you solve someone's problem, you're going to get their business.
Most definitely. It's definitely one of those things you have to be comfortable being able to speak to people that you don't know. I think one of my challenges is I will say I'm not telling people that I come in contact with that I do real estate. I have to remember to put that like at the top of my conversation, like, hey, by the way, if you're looking to buy or sell a house, let me know.
Right.
Here. So kind of how was that for you building up that buyers and sellers market in a totally new environment when you moved to the Hamptons?
Good question. So I backed my way into the business a little bit differently. So I had a network of builders. I had relationships with builders already. And so I was working with builders saying, hey, look, if you need help finding deals or finding money, come to me. I can assist you with that. The developers and builders are always looking for land or lots that they can build a beautiful home on, either a custom home or a spec home. So a custom home is for an end customer a client, end user who they already have, and you're sort of building to their specifications and what they like. Or you're building on spec, which is a developer or builder finds a piece of land, clears it, gets the permits, puts up a home, no buyer yet, hires an agent to find them a buyer, sell the house, agent gets their money, builder gets their money. And so I was working with a lot of spec builders, land, and then finding the money, building the houses, and then selling them on the back end. And so doing that for a number of years on sort of the investment side of things, I knew what constituted a really good deal. I knew what makes a good investment purchase from just a buying standpoint. So that's very, very sharp. Those tools are very, very sharp. I know what makes a good investment property and what it takes and what it could sell for and what the potential returns are going to be. So I'm a great agent for a builder developer. So at that point, you just tell as many builders and developers as you can what you do, and then you've got, a book of, clients right there. And then you just go out and find the land, and then you just broker the deal. What I did, which is very unique in the Hamptons, is I would approach landowners who had lots that were on the market for a long time that were just sitting, just vacant land. I'd say, hey, look, you've got a piece of dirt here that's been sitting and getting dust. You want to sell it. I think it'd be easier to sell that piece of dirt if you put a house on it. Do you want to joint venture or partner with a developer or builder to build a house? When it sells, you get what you wanted for the land, plus some more, maybe a piece of the profits. You can walk away with more. So I went around. I approached every single vacant land parcel that was on the market in the Hamptons that way. So that introduced me to a lot of the brokers, reaching out and saying, hey, look, do you want to do this thing? So first thing is you have to figure out who the players are on the brokerage side of things. Whether or not you have a client, preferably you do have a buyer, right? But if you don't have a buyer, pretend you have a buyer and start reaching out to deals that are on the market. For me, it was more investment deals, things that could be bought and renovated and then resold, or just vacant land that could be built on. And you're reaching out to people, all of the top players, especially in the Hamptons, or imagine this in your market, whoever's listening to this is. You're just finding out who the top players are in the market. That was key. And making that introduction and saying, hey, look, I've got a buyer for this. Can you tell me a little bit more about the property? What do you think this home could resell for? So that's like step one, is getting on their radar consistently. And if you don't have a buyer, you don't have a buyer. If you do have a buyer, great. That's a good shoe-in, an introduction kind of into the market, and gets you to figure out not only who the top players are, you learn about each different pocket in every neighborhood that you're sort of reaching out to. And you do a couple different strategies until you kind of realize what kind of broker you're going to be. Are you a seller's agent? Are you a buyer's agent? Are you dealing with investment things? Are you working with kind of first-time home buyers, or it doesn't matter if they're second-time home buyers, but are you working with buyers? You kind of got to figure out who you are, what your niche is. I'm someone who admits I don't try to be everything to everybody. Real estate can sometimes be a very localized thing where the amount of information you can give your client will make or break the deal. If they kind of realize that you don't know anything about the market, you don't really know the restaurants that are around the corner, you don't really know what the values are in that neighborhood. So to begin with, I would always tell people that, I would probably pick a zip code or an area, know everything about what's going on in that zip code area market, in that price point, and just study. So you can say, so when you do have a buyer, you can go to them, hey, look, Susan, that over there sold a week ago. That was bought 2 months ago. They just lowered their price 15 grand. That kind of value will sort of set you apart from other brokers that they're sort of working with. And then, when you get a listing, it's great because once you get a listing, you can kind of use one house that's for sale to sort of snowball and collect either other sellers on that street. Mailing campaign to every house on that street saying, hey, look, I just listed your neighbor's house for sale. Maybe there's a real estate need I could help you with. Do a lot of open houses. And every buyer that comes in who doesn't have an agent, get their details, you follow up with them, you make them your client because you know that they're looking for a property. So it snowballs, but it always kind of has to start with something. Start with the seller, you start with the buyer, and use it to kind of get more and more business.
I love that. I love how you said to kind of focus in on one thing at a time. Because right now I'm trying to focus on buyers.
Right.
So it seems like the easiest thing, especially with me not being from here. And I can't keep using that as my excuse. I don't really know a lot of people from here.
Don't tell anybody you're not from there. Don't even mention it. You are a pro.
I've been doing this for years. Trust me. Honestly, I've never had people ask. Well, I have had. Honestly, I did have this one client ask, how long have you been doing real estate? I was like, oh, wow, now.
Right. It's easy. It's something you can overcome quite easily if you just follow that up with a tremendous amount of market data. What things that are going on in the neighborhood and the real estate. But you just gotta know. You gotta study the market reports and or find another agent and get on their team. You find a
Mm,
really successful solo agent, say, hey, look, I'm going to come work for you. Um, I want to be your team. I want to do all the grunt work so you don't have to. That'll open you up to grow the business even more because you can spend all your time networking and bringing in more business, and just let me handle all the paperwork while I learn and this and that, collect a piece of their deals. And that's
right.
probably the number one way, and the quickest way to do it is to find another top agent and say, hey, look, you go out and be the face, but let me be behind the scenes and we can grow this thing together.
Look, I joined the team, like, exactly, because that's like a great piece of advice. I have my cousin's girlfriend does real estate. She's in Philadelphia. And I was like, I'm getting into real estate. What are some tips? She's like, definitely join a team. If you're just getting involved and you want to get some deals and get them quickly, more so than you would just on your own out there trying to figure it out, definitely join a team. So if any of you all are watching, definitely keep that in mind.
Okay,
Join a
right
team.
on.
Someone commented and said, this is great. Thank you, April.
Thanks.
Um, Thanks so much. So that's so exciting. So, kind of, what are some of your future goals, aside from this show and things like that?
Yes. So I suppose I've got a lot of goals. On one hand, I've narrowed down. I was doing a lot of different things, and if you really want to be successful, there's a quote: "You've got to focus on the few, not the many." And so, and when studying really successful people, it's true. You find one thing, you master it, and be willing to do it for 10 years before you see the results. I didn't have that, you know, that I didn't have that dialed in when I was first getting into real estate. Like, it would take 10 years. I need to be top of my game. I need to make the Forbes 30 under 30, like right now.
Right.
And since I've got into real estate entrepreneur, working, being, independent contractor, working for yourself, things like that. Over the past 10 years, being an entrepreneur has become kind of in vogue. It's like a popular thing to start your own business and work for yourself. Um, but I think the message that didn't get across to me is that it would take 10 years.
Mm,
What people told me, I didn't want to believe them because I'm just like to be fast out of the gate. So I think I've been through that first decade of my career, and for the next decade of my career, with that insight, I know it might take another 10 years to get to really kind of where I want to be. Um, but I like to start getting more into, I've got a number of things that I'm doing. I'm getting in sort of the concierge side of the business, right? So although I just said focus on the few, not the many, the other things that I want to do help and are kind of offshoots and a sort of ancillary services to what the main thing
like
is.
the bigger picture is, yeah.
My main thing is I'm an agent, I'm an agent, I'm an agent. I sell houses, I sell houses, I sell houses. That's what I do. But I find that, especially because I live in a luxury market, there are other things that I can get into, whether it's sort of moving and delivery services, concierge level services. So if somebody wants to come out to the Hamptons, has never been to the Hamptons before, they're considering buying a house in the Hamptons. Okay, all right, let's put together a day long little program for you where you go out in a yacht for a few hours. We take you to a restaurant. We
Mm,
get you a nice cars you have to drive around in. So that's what my concierge does. My brokerage team at my team at my brokerage firm is called the private client team, and so we try to focus on more high net worth families and individuals, C-suite executives, um, and not necessarily, it's like a Chase private client. We just provide more services. I'm willing to hold somebody's hand for 6 months before they make a purchase or get a deal
look
done.
out, carry you, like, let's go.
Exactly. And, whisper sweet nothings in your ear and teach you about the market and why, this is going to be, because it's a sizable investment for somebody if they're spending, um, you know, although our show is called $1 Million Beach House, there aren't a lot of $1 million beach houses. That's like an entry price here in the Hamptons. You're much
Right.
more going to be spending on the low end, 2 to 3 million bucks, and on the high end, 10, 15, 20, or much more millions of dollars. So it's a very big investment for somebody. They don't always make it in a snap decision. They want to make sure it's the right thing, that there could be some potential upside. You can't. What's great about the Hamptons is that you can't really. And I'm going to answer your question. I realize I haven't answered it, but I'm going to answer your question. You can't really lose your shirt in this market unless you're really trying. Just because of the proximity to Manhattan, it's such a popular destination spot outside of the city. The
Mhm.
pandemic has only made it more and more popular. People realizing that they just can't have an apartment in the city, and if you can afford to have a second home, the Hamptons is a great market for that. So people sort of realizing, okay, if we're going to invest in a property, we want to be able to sell it down the line, and not lose much. The Hamptons is a great market for that. But to get back to your question, concierge, and then I'm now in the process of sort of putting together a design build team of my own. So for many years, I've been referring people to other builders and developers that I know, but I've sort of collected a lot of resources and tools from contractors and tradespeople and designers and architects and things like that. And I'm starting to educate myself a lot more on the actual building side of things and what constitutes great design. I'm really fascinated by glass houses right now, houses with a lot of glass and glasses and houses that are all glass. And so contemporary things, modern homes, things of that nature. And so we've got a couple really cool things that are going to be breaking ground soon, both custom and spec. Um, and so getting into the design build side of things as well for maybe one or two customers that I'm very involved in actually building the home itself from the team that I've put together. That's where I see myself doing a lot more over the next 5 to 10 years.
Ooh, that's exciting. So,
And expanding the brokerage stuff. I'm going to go to South Florida. I want to get a couple team members down there, and then we're going to go to LA. So, of course, expanding the brokerage into other luxury markets around the country as well.
oh, I love it. Look, I might have to move to Florida and get my license over there.
Florida, it's a great market. A lot of homeowners here in the Hamptons have places down in Palm Beach or Miami as well. So you just kind of go where your clients go and
Mm.
get back them in other markets.
Speaking of which, we were kind of talking like, it's kind of getting cold out. You said this is kind of a down season in the Hamptons. So kind of tell us what your plans are in a time like this.
Yeah, so there's the major selling season in the Hamptons is probably Memorial Day to Labor Day. So end of May till early September, October. There's sort of a nice fall selling season, but typically the winter months, not a lot happens. You're sort of gearing up for, I mean, there's another kind of selling points pockets before May or March, but really gets really busy and active probably in April, March, April. And so in the off season, what a lot of smart brokers do is they go to South Florida, or they'll go to some of these popular not surf, but snowboarding and skiing places where people have second homes and things like that. And they spend time and building a book of business in other markets, or just living and hanging out in those other markets as well, because nobody likes to hang around in, well, I shouldn't say that. People do like the colder months, but and I grew up in Minnesota for a matter of fact, but I still just don't like the colder months.
I don't either. I'm from the South. We're not used to the cold. Like
I'm used
it's
to
like
it.
8 degrees here today. So
Wow, that's good. That's perfect temperature.
right.
So on the off season, there's still a lot of work that can get done. If you want to have a successful spring, if you happen to live in a beach or summer community, what you do in the off season in the spring leading up to the summer months really will dictate how successful and how good of a summer you have. So you're still dealing with owners constantly saying, hey, look, you looking to sell in the next 6 months? Well, let's begin thinking about preparing for selling in the spring. Let's, grass is still green. Let's photograph your property now. Let's, start talking to some potential buyers in the off season. Let's get the listing ready for when we go live for it, top of the year. So there's still a lot of work to be done in the off season. And so there's that. I'm in the process of getting my Florida real estate license. So hopefully I'll have that within a month, and I'll spend, a little bit of time, maybe a month or two, as much as I can down in Florida this winter. But then still a lot of things happening up in the Hamptons that I have to be up here for. So it'll be busy off season. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm excited to hear about it. So we're gonna kind of back. So like COVID, we talked about the pandemic briefly. So
Yeah.
how did the pandemic really affect you in like the real estate market up there? Did you see any changes?
Yeah, COVID happened. Everybody kind of held their breath for a little bit because nobody knew what was going to happen.
Right.
People weren't, I'm in New York, so people initially weren't taking it that seriously. When you hear one case, 5 case, 20 cases, you're still kind of going out to restaurants, you're still living your life, you're not shutting things down.
Right.
Um, and so when New York City finally said, "Oh, this is like a real serious thing. These cases are starting to skyrocket," people in Manhattan started to freak out, especially when there were rumors of lockdowns and bridges closed and Armageddon. Um, and so people started to flood to the Hamptons and to the not just to the Hamptons, but upstate New York, the outer suburbs, the boroughs, Long Island. But if you had a home in the Hamptons, definitely started to flood it to the Hamptons. And so I remember I was representing a property on the market for about 9 million bucks, and I had a showing on the early onset, and the buyers tried to offer like 5 million bucks and said, "Hey, look, this COVID thing is coming. A lot of these homes are going to be half off." And I said, "Well, actually, I think the exact opposite is going to happen. I think prices are going to be owners and prices are going to really stabilize, if not start trading for a lot more." And of course,
Right.
right, this was early, probably like March, April. Um, and so that's what we saw happening. We saw a lot of people starting to find short-term rentals in the Hamptons. I had never done a lot of rentals before,
Mhm.
but there was so much demand for rentals, luxury rentals, short-term stays, whether it was for 2 weeks or a month or the entire summer. Some people said, "Look, let's get out of the city and let's just get our summer going anyway. We're typically renting for 1 or 2 months. Let's just find something right now and rent for 3
Right.
4 months out in the Hamptons and work virtually." And so the rental market went nuts. It went crazy. We were running out of inventory, which just doesn't really typically happen.
Right.
People couldn't find deals. And fortunately enough, there are a lot of owners who, for the first time, decided to throw their house on the market to rent, just to sort of, you know, capitalize on all the people coming out to the Hamptons to get away
Yeah.
from the condensed city. And so it was a very, very busy summer. It was hectic. It was crazy. Deals were sort of flying off the shelf. We couldn't find deals. We were having to, call owners and say, "Hey, could you rent your house, please? I've got
Like,
customers."
please, like it's just sitting there. Can we please put someone in it?
And people doing renting homes for crazy numbers, sight unseen, um, just to have a place to escape to, outside of the city. So it was very hectic. COVID had, it's unfortunate, but it had a good impact on, say, the real estate business in the market, because there were, agents. Every agent was busier than they've ever been, just trying to accommodate all these customers and clients looking for houses.
Most definitely. Shout out to the real estate agency, the essential workers.
Yeah, and
People
real
are
estate became essential workers.
right, essential now. But as it should be, people are always looking for homes. It's
Mhm.
definitely a market that seems like it's ongoing. Um, so just like we've talked about business and all that, so kind of just some fun stuff. So what's some music that you like? What are you listening to right
Music. Oh gosh,
now? What's on your playlist?
on my playlist is a lot of things. KRS-One, Mos Def, Kanye, um, all the Nas, all the way to I like a little bit of rock and roll every now and then. I like some Kings of Leon, some Oasis, some classical stuff. I grew up playing the drum set, so I think that just gave me like a appreciation for like other genres like jazz and some rock and roll things like that. But it's a lot of hip hop. Um, it's mostly hip hop, yeah.
Me too. So just one of those things. So kind of tell us like what's a day like for you? Do you have like a morning routine? I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they like have this set morning routine. So kind of tell us what yours is.
Yeah, it changes, but for the most part, I'm somewhat of an early riser. My body kind of gets me up early, and so I'm yeah, I shouldn't. I should like work out. I should do this and that. But sometimes I pick up that laptop or I'm on my phone and right away I'm sending emails or I'm on Twitter, which is where I get a lot of my news. So that's typically one of the first things I do is I pop open Twitter and I'm seeing what's trending. I'm seeing what emails have, come in. I'm a weird kind of check my email at 2 a.m. like I'm expecting something. It's just a very bad habit. I have, but I typically get right into it and I'm doing some work from about 30, 40 minutes right after getting up. And then I'm hopping in the shower and then I'm having breakfast, a later breakfast, maybe around 8 a.m. or so. Um, Typically pre-COVID, I was driving to the office and I'm in the office right away. Also pre-COVID, there's a habit that I got into being new to the Hamptons, which is I go and I sit on a bench in town, and so I used to 9 a.m. every morning sit, for an hour on this bench out in front of a coffee shop on the main street, on the main stretch here on the main street, and just talk to locals and like interact and mingle. And as a real estate agent, that's like a great thing to do, especially when it's such a relationship business. That was a typical thing, but COVID's not around now, so I'm pretty much just on my laptop or making phone calls or I'm in my car. I spend a tremendous, tremendous amount of time in my car, driving around, just being in my car. I'm looking at houses or I'll pull up to somewhere with Wi-Fi, send some more emails, drive back around to places. I'm visiting listings that I have on the market. I just like to sometimes just drive by, just check on the house. Um, and so it's usually going from house to house to house. I always have a list of one or two things I'm going to go see, whether
Mhm.
it's a vacant lot, or a house that somebody's looking at. I'm one of those people who, if a buyer's looking at something, I like to go do a drive by and tell them what I think about the neighborhood. So I like to really break down. Okay, I like to tell a buyer, yeah, I drove the street. Here's what I think about the street, not just the house, but here's what I think about the neighborhood and the street, close proximity to XYZ. So I sometimes spend, I mean, on a crazy day, I might be spending 8 hours in my car, uh, but I'm spending at least a couple hours in my car every single day, which is a bad habit. But there's also, I'm not in my office that much
Yeah.
because we're in the COVID environment. But even when we could show up and we can go to our office now, but even now, I still like to just work out of my car. I used to have a printer in my back seat, and
No way.
one of those converters where I could plug it in. I could print out of the back seat, but I got rid of it because it was a bit too much.
I'm doing too much now.
Yeah, that's a
I,
typical day.
I love it. I really, really do. And I feel like
I didn't. I do like to catch the sunset. I have some certain rituals. Times the sun setting. I'm fortunate enough to be in sort of a beach town, so I like to go catch the sunset, and then have dinner. But then there's another, you know, probably a couple hours I like to do. I'm very productive from the hours of, I would say, 8 p.m. to about 10 or 11.
Mhm.
During the day, I'm kind of running around getting a lot of things done that people need me to get done, want me to get done. I use that time in the late evening to kind of work on like stuff that I want to work, projects or things that I'm doing, whether it's like marketing campaigns, whatever it is that requires a little bit more creativity or focus. I can like exhale. It's like that me time where I'm kind of focused on, projects, personal projects, and then thinking about the next day.
Definitely. So it sounds like you kind of time block your day and kind of stick to it.
I try my best. It's a lot of shooting from the hip and being on call. You never know what's going to pop up or we got to run to, but I definitely try to find that time in the evening where, don't bother me. It's much more me time.
I'm definitely working on that. I'm a mom, so it's kind of like all over the place.
Sure.
I'm telling you, like my son, I have a 2-year-old. He'll wait until I get on the phone with a client now. Not bothering me all day, but as soon as the client calls, he's like right there, like trying to scream. I'm having to run away from him so I can be professional.
They call the terrible twos, right?
Oh my gosh. And I hear that 3 is even worse. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to brace myself with like a
There's
toddler and my other daughter, she's 7, she's doing virtual learning. And I'm just getting into real estate. I am full-time in real estate. Not by choice, it just kind of happened. Some things happened, COVID, all of this. So here I am. But
Here's
you
what I would say to that. I learned this from some guys who were developers, who were just like very successful. They always found a way to work their children like into the conversation. It was like something that they were very open. And nowadays, everyone's working from home, so it's like you're gonna hear kids screaming in the background. But I wouldn't even like hide it. I would somehow work it. It would be if I was on a phone call with you and you said to me, "Hey, yeah, that's my kid screaming in the background," and "Hey, say hi to whoever." Even though you're trying to be the most professional, they might go, "Wow, that was actually very like personal of you, like work your children into the conversation." No one's going to be upset at a screaming, a kid, to an extent, but find a way to work it in. They might get a chuckle out of it.
They usually do. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. That was my 2-year-old screaming. So you're like working from home.
Exactly.
You're like, I totally get it. I have a 3-year-old right here pulling on my legs. So it's one of those things. So thanks so much for coming on. I had a wonderful time. So kind of tell our audience how they can connect with you or they can find you on social media.
So all my social media is pretty much the same. It's my first name, Noel, Noel, the letter X, and then my last name, Roberts. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Gonna start a YouTube channel soon, hopefully, and start recording a little bit more like my daily vlogs and my life and homes and something that so people can learn a lot more about the Hamptons and what my day to day looks like. We did this TV show which was supposed to capture a lot, but I feel like a good solid hour or two, you could like learn a lot more about like behind the scenes, what life is like actually like, without a camera crew following you around, just me and a cell phone. So look out for that. Look out for that soon.
Most definitely, you guys. Thank you all for tuning in.